Thank you all so much for coming. There are a lot of you.
Which is good, because we want our message to be spread as wide as we can. So I'm glad you could all make it. Thank you.
Yes, Justin and I are super excited to share all of our tips and tricks for Visual Studio 2017 with you all. But first, before we get into anything else, let us introduce ourselves. I am Allison Buchholz-Au. I am a program manager on the Visual Studio platform team, and I've been with them for almost 2 years now.
I'm Justin Clarebird, program manager in Visual Studio Extensibility, and I've been there around the same time.
Yeah, we're buddies that way.
That's right.
Awesome. So I have 2 questions for you guys. First, how many of you have been to a talk like this before, either at last build or the year before? OK, so some of you remember me then, hopefully, maybe. Mm-hmm. All right. And then second, how many of you get the reference of 88 miles per hour? You guys want to shout out what it's from?
Yeah.
Yes. OK. We've had so many people be like, what is it, 88 miles per hour? So we can't guarantee that we can take you back in time so that you can be twice as productive. But we're hoping with these tips and tricks, it'll seem like you went back in time and knew all of this. So let's get started. It's going to be pretty demo heavy. We're going to be running through lots of shortcuts, tips, and tricks. This will all be in a write-up online that we've compiled for you, as well as the document that we handed out and was available at, again, aka.ms/vsnavshortcuts, which should save you from trying to write everything at the speed of light, which is how we will end up talking. So for a quick agenda here, if I can get it, we're going to go over 6 demos here. I'm going to start with getting you set up and getting you to your code fast. Then Justin's going to take the keyboard by storm and show you how to navigate around your IDE. I'm going to show you some of our favorite tricks for Solution Explorer before handing it back to Justin for how you can use extensions to make, as he says, file editing zing. Then we're going to switch it back to me for some code tools that will give you better insight as you code, and we're going to finish it off with live unit testing.
All right.
You guys ready? All right.
Yeah, let's get in.
So let's get started fast here. All right, so hopefully all of you have seen Visual Studio 2017. If you haven't, this is our new start page here. And I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about everything that's on here, but really it's meant to help you get to code fast. And there are 2 things that I want to highlight that maybe are a little more subtle and you might not have noticed. So first, we have our new projects here. I'm sure everyone's familiar with how to create a new project. But we've added this recent project template so that you always have at hand the project templates that you tend to create most. But what's even better is that these project templates will roam across VS installs. So whether you're working on one machine in your office versus another machine at home, the projects that you create most often will always be at your fingertips. If we go over to recents, you'll notice that we still have your classic solutions available, as well as folders now, for those of you who have experimented with our open folder scenarios. But this icon down here might look different to a lot of you. And this is what we call a roaming code container. For those of you who use Git with either GitHub or Visual Studio Team Services, this element represents a repository that you've cloned on another machine. So this is actually a repository that I have on my work desktop. But if I wanted to create it or clone it locally here, all I have to do is click it, and this great new clone dialog pops up. With one more click, I can clone it down and get started working. If you're like me, you often have to reinstall Windows, and it wipes everything away. We've heard from some of you this happens nightly. So in this case, when you come back to Visual Studio, your repositories will be right there waiting for you to help you get set up quickly and get started. So
They like that.
hopefully that'll help some of you. Awesome. So what we're going to do is, as you see here, we have our build demo folder. So we're going to go ahead and open that up. As you see here, you no longer need a solution or a project in order to explore your code. All you need is a folder. As you can see here, we have a single Python file that's open, and it's got formatting and colorization, and this is through TextMate bundles. We support languages such as Go, Swift, Ruby, and about a dozen others. And the great thing about this is that if you have a language you'd like to be supported and it's not there yet, you can actually go implement this yourself. Or maybe if you know the language creators, you can like nudge them to create it for you. And finally, for my last trick, I've shared this with a couple of you out there, but it's called saved window layouts. How many of you switch between a multi-monitor and a single monitor display? How many of you have windows when you go from a multi-monitor to a single monitor that are now gone off the edges of the screen and you have to shut down VS to get them back? How many of you know how to fix that problem? All right. So for those of you
Why
who
don't you teach them, Allison?
I'm about to hopefully help you out here. So what you can do is in a single monitor layout here, let's open a couple more windows. I'm going to go ahead and use Quick Launch in the upper right-hand corner here to open Team Explorer. And also, let's go ahead and open the output window. So let's say this is the orientation that I want for all of my windows when I'm in a single monitor mode. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to Window, and I'm going to go to Save Window Layout. And I'm going to save this for use at any point. So I'm going to call this Build. And it saved it as Build now. So if I go to Window and I hit Apply Window Layout, you'll see that I have all of these different options available to me. So if I decided to close Team Explorer, or maybe Output got pushed off to the side somehow, and now everything's messed up, I can just go to Windows, Apply Window Layout, and click the layout that I'd like. As you notice, they also all have shortcuts, so I can do Control-Alt-4. It'll ask me to apply it, and if I hit OK, everything is snapped back just the way I'd like it.
Nice.
All right. Hopefully that saves some of you guys some strife. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Justin to take you on a roll with keyboard shortcuts.
Thanks, Allison. That's terrific. While we're on the topic of window layouts, I'm going to point out one special window layout that's always available. It's the full screen mode. And if you look under the View menu, you'll find full screen is down there. And it has a shortcut, Shift-Alt-Enter. When you press that shortcut, Shift-Alt-Enter, it removes all toolbars, maximizes window screen space, and in its default mode gets rid of all tool windows. And you can get out of full screen mode with Shift-Alt-Enter again and return to the layout that you had before. Important to note that if you do happen to open up a window, full screen mode will retain that layout when you return to it. So I can go back and it will keep the layout that I held. But now I'm going to teach you all about how to navigate around your IDE and your documents with the keyboard. Not a big fan of the mouse. I don't find it's very productive. So I have investigated all the commands that I can find and invented a few new ones so that you can navigate in and around your working environment with the keyboard. For this demonstration, I'll draw your attention to the VS Nav shortcuts that we had up on the board earlier that some of you may have in front of you. The sheet that outlines everything here, so you can follow along and you don't have to take notes on all the shortcuts, and you can refer to that later and take it back to your desk. Also, I'm running a little keyboard shortcut thing that will show you in the bottom right-hand corner the keys that I'm pressing, so you can see what magic I'm doing. So, with that said, let's have a look at navigating in and around Visual Studio with the keyboard. So the first thing to learn is that if I'm in a tool window, I can always go back to my main document well by pressing Escape. Press Escape, I go back to my document. So I could be in here, I could be in Output window, press Escape, go back to the document. But what if I now want to go straight back to the tool window that I was in? This is a very hidden shortcut key. It took me months to find it. Alt F6 returns you to the window you were just in. It's so exciting, I'm going to repeat that. Alt F6 takes you to the tool window that you were just in. And repeatedly pressing Alt F6 will cycle through all tool windows that you have active. Cool, huh? Now, the next thing to learn is how do I close a tool window? Let's say I'm done with Team Explorer. I want more visible space on my screen. The shortcut for closing a tool window is Shift Escape. And it's gone. But now I want to get it back. It's missing. How do I find it again? Well, I'll draw your attention to the menu bar. Here on the View menu are a lot of the main tool windows that you might use in your everyday, but also pay attention to the other windows, which has a few more. You'll find windows in the debug menu and in the test menu and in the architecture menu. So you might need to go hunting for the windows you need. There are a few that I find most useful, and I'm going to talk about those now. Solution Explorer has a shortcut key in the default keyboard mapping of Control-Alt-L. And Team Explorer is Control/Control-M. I'll draw your attention to Error List /E and Output Control-Alt-O. I use those frequently, and I've been using them already, whether you noticed or not, as I open up the Output window with Control-Alt-O and Team Explorer with Control/M. I must admit, I probably use \M 100 times a day. So those are the main windows that you can get to that I use. But I'd like to show you something about Team Explorer. I frequently make changes. Change here. And I'll see my changes here. I'm most interested in my changes. And there's a special shortcut button down the bottom of the status bar which will take you directly to the changes page. But you can also pop this window out. Using this little button here, it pops the Changes tab out, so you can now dock changes wherever you like. I can have my changes over here and hidden. So you can do that with most Team Explorer windows, so that's something to experiment with. And you can move them back, clicking and dragging over here. Now, enough of the mouse. Let's get back onto the keyboard. So let's see. OK, at this next point, there are a few actions that you can do with tool windows that currently don't have shortcuts in the default mapping scheme. You can access almost all of them through the window menu. So if I want to hide this window instead of removing it completely, it's under Auto Hide. So Auto Hide pushes it back, and now it's still available. It's not gone, and I can bring it up again. What if I want to dock this now? You can press this little pin, and of course you could close windows with these things, but then you need your mouse. Again, in the Windows menu, you can dock. And when you dock it, it gets docked straight away. But I want to do these things with direct keyboard shortcuts. So I'm going to teach you now how to map your own keyboard shortcuts. And I've invented a few that I'm very excited about. So I'm going to suggest them to you. And if you like them, you can implement them yourself. Maybe in future releases, if I can convince the team, we might push these in by default. But here they are, Window Dock and Window Auto Hide. So I've jumped into this window, and I'll show you that again. If you want to configure your keyboard shortcuts, go to the Tools menu under Options. You'll find Environment Keyboard, or you can go straight to Quick Launch and type Keyboard. The commands I'm looking to map this time are window.dock. There's window.dock, and for this command, I like using Control-Insert. So I put Control-Insert here. I see it's already bound to Edit Copy. From the old days, before Control-C, Control-X, and Control-V became standard. I don't need Edit Copy on Control-Insert, so I'm going to take over that shortcut and assign that to window.dock. While I'm there, I will assign Docker's tabbed document to Control-Shift-Insert. I'll show you the power of these in a moment. The next ones to assign are window.auto-hide. This is how we minimize the tool window. We close the tool window with Shift-Escape, as I mentioned earlier. So I like using Shift-Insert to hide the window. Again, this was assigned to paste. I don't need that. I'll use Control-V for paste, so I'll override that keyboard shortcut. And for Windows.hide all, like the single window, can Shift-Insert, but this time Shift-Alt-Insert, which is kind of similar to the Maximize, as you'll see. So now that I've invented and created these keyboard shortcuts, let's look at what you can do. Got some windows open here. I want to hide this window here. Shift-Insert, and it's hidden. I want to bring it back again. So Alt F6, get it back. Now dock it, Control-Insert. Oops, wrong key, Control-Insert. Meanwhile, if I bring up the output list, I can dock that one. Now if I want to maximize this, I want to see more of my output. Control-Shift-Insert, Docker's tab document. That's what this does. It pushes it up as a major document. Control-Insert, bring it back down again. Don't know why I failed docking my Team Explorer. I'll try that again. Control-Insert, there we go. Now if I want to hide that window, it's Shift-Insert. And if I want to hide all windows, Alt-Shift-Insert. Now I have a full screen of editing. That's super powerful. If you're busy coding, an output window pops up, you're still coding. I don't want to have to move over to my window. I'll just press Alt-Shift-Insert, all gone. So those are my new keyboard shortcuts. You're welcome to try those out at home yourself. But we have other ways of getting around the tool, and let's talk about document navigation. So I normally have my Solution Explorer open and docked in there. Let's say I have a whole bunch of files open, and I want to navigate from one file to the next file. Control-Tab takes me from one file to the most recent file. Here I am in Command Filter. Now I'm over in Extract Class. If I press Control-Tab, it takes me back to the one I was in most recently. And Control-Tab, again, pops me back to where I was. If you hold the Control key, you can press Tab repeatedly to go to all the other files in the order in which you accessed them last. While you're here also, while holding the Control key, if you use the arrow keys, you can move over to access the active tool windows. And then I can bring up a tool window there. That's all with the power of Control-Tab. Showed this off to someone earlier today who was using Control-Tab all the time. Didn't even notice this little thing flashing up in front of them. So if you see that thing flashing up, hold the Control key, you get better access to it. Now, what else can we do? OK, now, this is a special shortcut that I hunted for 7 months. And when I found it, it made my day, and now I use it all the time. The trick is this. I want to move across to the very next file. It's not the most recent in my list. I might have to Control-Tab all day to get to it, but it's right next to me. How do I get to it? The shortcut for moving to the document immediately to the right is Control-Alt, page down. And I can go across all of those documents. And to move back, Control-Alt, page up. Finally. So those were hard to find, and so I'm glad to share those with you today. To move to the document, Control-Alt, page up and down. But there are other ways of navigating in and around your documents. In Visual Studio 2017, we've introduced a new way of going to documents through the Go to All feature. So it's available under the Edit menu, and you can go to All with Control-T. Go to All with Control-T brings up this new sort of Omni box. And you'll see it says type question mark to get help. This is because we have a fancy new query syntax. Whatever I type in here, if I say looking for commands, it shows me a bunch of different things, from files, classes, members. But if I'm only interested in filtering, I can say, if I just want files, I can use the fancy new query syntax and say F space, and now it's only filtering on files. There's a whole bunch of buttons up here that allow you to get easy access to change those filters to types or symbols. Once you have a list, you can navigate using the arrow keys up and down. And as you go, you'll see a little preview of each document will show up in the Preview tab, which is the document that appears in the top right corner. If I find something that I want, I can go directly into it. But we've also introduced direct keyboard shortcuts for these filters so that you don't have to use the query syntax. The shortcut for going to a file is here, Control-1F. Oopsie, mouse got in the road. Alt-E and Control-1F. And Control-1T will bring up type. So Control-1T, and I can immediately type Command Filter, and I get just the types that I'm interested in. So that's navigating with our new Go-To box. There are other ways of getting around, and let's say I'm looking at references. If I have my command class and I want to know all the different things that create a command, the shortcut key for finding references is Shift F12. And when I press Shift F12, all the things that reference this symbol are shown in the new Find All References box. Now, this is different from last year. The Visual Studio 2017 Find All References shows a nice little list with columns that you can sort and group. You can add additional columns. You can, where are we? So add in extra columns here. I can sort. I can use different kinds of grouping. I can group by file, project, all sorts of things. So this is a lot more powerful, and you can now get a better way of seeing all your references. We have some predefined groupings up here. And for this demo, I'm going to choose the project then definition grouping, which lays it out by project, by definition. And here we are. So now I've got my references. Again, I can use the arrow keys to up and down through these references. I can also press Enter to go into the file. But if I want to continue to navigate through the references, I can press F8. F8 moves through whatever is the active list. If it's your error list, it'll move through errors. If it's your Find All References, it'll move through the references. And Shift F8 will go backward. Finally, if there's a document that's popped up in the preview tab, in this case, format code has popped up, and I want to keep working with this document, but it's in my preview tab, there's a shortcut for pinning this. You can press this button here to keep open, but the shortcut is Control-Alt-Home. And now that document is kept for me so that if I happen to navigate over something else, I'm not going to lose that document as another preview pops up. So that's how we can use our new Find All References box. Let's take a look at Go to Definition. So in this instance, I'm going to find my command filter. Where is my command filter? Oh, I'll just bring up the search. Control-1T, command filter CF, and there I am. I don't want these windows here. What's my shortcut to get rid of windows? Alt-Shift-Insert. Oh, that's much nicer. So here, I might be interested in following a chain. And in this case, I want to find out how do I get toggle comment to work. The shortcut for Go to Definition, which is available on the context menu, Go to Definition, is F12. When you press F12, it navigates through. Pressing F12 again, you can continue to navigate. Now, how do I go back? The shortcut for navigating back, and if you've never noticed it, this little arrow, the very first item on the toolbar, says Navigate Backward, has the shortcut Control-. And when you drop the drop-down button, you can see all the places I've been and go directly to it. But as a keyboard man, I'm going to hit Control-, as it continues to take me back to where I was, and Control-Shift-, if you forget the shortcut, you can hover over that one there. Control-Shift- goes forward again. So that's how we can navigate in and around using Go to Definition. But now I see my preview window is open. I don't need this anymore, and I'd like to close it. There is a shortcut for closing documents. It's the same as it's ever been. Control-F4 closes a document. And I can use that to close multiple documents. Or if I want to close them all, Alt-W, L, close all documents. I don't want to save changes. And I'm down. Now, there's one other shortcut I'm going to show you before I hand it back over to Alison. But first, I'm going to need some files open. So open Solution Explorer and dock it. I'm going to introduce an error, a couple of errors actually, just so that you can see what will happen if my code breaks. I'll put an S at the end of that. That should be enough to create an error. And I'll create a spelling mistake in here. Opening up another file, I've got errors over here that I'll insert. The beauty of this is that now I'm going to save these documents, save, close, close. Now I want to go fix my errors. There's a shortcut for that. Control-Shift-F12 immediately takes me to the first error in the error list. Oh, oops, I forgot to save my changes. So we have no errors, as is a good habit of mine, not to have errors. But if I introduce errors and save them, then now when I press Control-Shift-F12, it immediately takes me back to where I was, and I can start fixing these errors straight away. Pressing Control-Shift-F12 will take me to the very next error and continue through so I can fix all my errors. And that's all the keyboard shortcuts I have for you in this session. Stay tuned for more.
All right. OK, we're going to try something really fast here. I know it's the end of the day. You're probably tired, so can everyone stand up for me?
Do a jiggle.
Well, no. You're going to sit down according to criteria I give you, all right? So think about the average number of projects in your solutions. If it's less than 5, sit down. If it's less than 20, sit down.
Oh,
if it's less than 50, oh, all right. You guys here, you're going to like me after
wow,
this, hopefully.
You guys are working on
all right, you can all sit down. Hopefully that got the blood rushing a little bit.
Simplify.
All right, so I'm going to talk about Solution Explorer. Let me switch this back to my machine here. And we're going to focus on ways that, especially for those of you with solutions that have many, many projects, hopefully we can help you out with some of these. Now, at the end of my last demo, you remember that we opened a file of code, as you can see here in Solution Explorer. Now, one thing is that, unlike Go-To, which will search along your solution, if you actually search in Solution Explorer while it's in folder view, it will search across that entire folder, including across multiple solutions. So if I were to go to Control-, which is the shortcut here, and I were to type main, or if I spell it right, again, there, we will notice that these are all the places that main is either in a file name or a class or a method across the entire folder, across 3 different solutions. So obviously, folder view is great if you're working with files that may not have solutions, but I know a lot of you do. And if you want to toggle back to the original view that you're used to, you can do that with this button here, which switches between a folder view and a solution view. If you want to just be able to see a quick list of all of the solutions that are in this folder that you've opened, simply hit the down arrow, and you'll see all of the solutions enumerated for you there. For our purposes, we're going to go ahead and work on Paint, which unfortunately only has 2 projects, so you guys are going to have to imagine with me for some of this. Now, one of the great things here is that if you are working with very large solutions, you might want to scope your view down in some way. I'm sure you're not looking at 100 projects at one time, and if you are, please come talk to me because I want to know what you're doing. One thing you can do here is you can filter Solution Explorer by either your pending changes, so these are files with changes that you haven't committed yet, or if you look here, you can do it by your open files. So that's a great way to scope it down. But perhaps an even better way, for some of you that I've talked to that have, let's say, 50 to 100 and more projects in your solution, Search in Solution Explorer is slow because it's searching through a lot of things. But one way that you can help with that is by actually scoping it down to the project that you're looking for. So if, for example, I just want to work in Paint here, I can right-click and hit Scope to this, and now the only thing Solution Explorer cares about is the project that I've told it to. So when I were to search here, we had a test project. If I were to search test, it no longer appears because all it cares about is the Paint project that I've selected. We can always exit out that way. Now, if you ever want to get back to your original view with all of your projects, you can always get out of scoping with Home. Now, for the last thing, sometimes you might have a bunch of files open, let's say. We'll open this one here. And as I'm scrolling through my Solution Explorer, especially if I'm looking around in other projects, I might lose where this file actually belongs. Maybe it belongs to a project that I'm not super familiar with and I forgot the name. So the great thing is that we can actually force Solution Explorer to sync with our active document. So in this case, we're looking for paintcanvas.cs. I can either force it to sync with this button up here, or as you can see, we have a shortcut with Control open bracket S. And as you see, we have that bright blue bar telling us exactly where this file lives in our solution tree. And with that, I am going to pass it back over to Justin to tell you more about how to make file editing Zing.
That's right. Okay, thanks, Alison. While we're on the topic of syncing with Solution, I'm going to point out a setting that might help people. If you constantly want your Solution Explorer to always track the file that you have open, I'll show you the special setting for that. Tools Options, Projects and Solutions. Track active item in Solution Explorer. If I activate this, that magic button that Alison just showed you a moment ago will disappear as it's always tracking the file. So now it's gone, and as I open a file here, watch as I navigate to the other file, Solution Explorer keeps a track of it immediately. But meanwhile, that's not part of my talk. That's just a little bit extra. So now, can you change screens? Thanks. I want to show the slide. Yeah, I want to see the slide.
We're working on it.
All right.
There we go.
So, editing like a pro, like me. No, I'm going to demonstrate a bunch of extensions that will help make editing in Visual Studio even more powerful. Visual Studio offers heaps of features out of the box, but we also have a very extendable platform. So our partners, customers, or anyone they like can write extensions for Visual Studio to improve the performance, add functionality that we haven't already put in the product. And there are thousands of extensions available today at the Visual Studio Marketplace. Some of our favorites are appearing on the featured list at the moment. But I'm going to highlight just 10 extensions for you today, 10 that I use every day for my editing to make me more productive. So I've listed some of them up on the screen now. So if you want to take a note of those, I'll be going through all those right now. So here we go. The very first extension I always install when I install Visual Studio is Git Diff Margin by Laurent Kemp and Sam Harwell. This extension will show me in the sidebar changes that I've made. If I were to delete this line. Oh, thank you. We're just going to switch screens now so you can watch. Thanks. So let's say I want to make some changes. If I maybe add some code here, maybe even add a comment. Add a comment here. The track changes bar, which is this yellow thing on the side, lets me know what unsaved changes are available. And when I save it, it goes green to show me that it's saved. But all the while, there's another margin right next to me, which is my diff margin. And this shows me that something new has been added because it's green. If I delete some code, you'll notice that a little red glyph appears. And if I edit some code, editor, operation, commands, now I have a change. Here in the margin, I can see the changes that I've made. This, if in green, it's new. If it's in red, it's a deletion. And if it's in blue, it's an edit. Now, why is that useful to me? I'll tell you why. Because if I want to get that code back, how do I do it? I can simply press that, and it shows me what the code used to be. This is great, as I can now copy data that might have already been deleted, or hit this revert button to put a change back. If I've deleted some code and it was an accident, I didn't mean to, or later I want to put it back, again, I can just revert that code, and it reappears. That's particularly useful, but I'll tell you when it's even most useful, is if you happen to be inside doing a commit. And I want to make some changes. How do I open my Team Explorer? /M and doc. Control-Alt-F7, and I get my changes. If I look at toggle comment in the diff viewer, this is where the power of git diff margin comes in. I realize I never meant to make this change, and instead of copying what used to be there and trying to paste it back, I can simply, at the last minute before I commit, revert that single change without reverting anything else, and now I can go ahead and do my commit. That's the power of git diff margin, so I encourage you to try that one. The next extension I'm going to call out is one from Productivity Power Tools. Productivity Power Tools is a suite of extensions that Microsoft have been maintaining and releasing for many years. We've released them for Visual Studio 2017. Now, the one that I'm going to call out is Solution Error Visualizer. The purpose of Solution Error Visualizer is to help me see where my errors are while I'm looking at the Solution Explorer. Notice I just made an error in this file, and I can see all these little red squigglies appearing in my Solution Explorer. This is particularly useful if everything's collapsed and I want to find out where these errors are. By looking at the Solution Explorer, I can see that I need to drill down. Clearly, the problem's in this folder. I can expand that, and here's the file with the error, and that helps me get to it. So that's Solution Error Visualizer. One of the other good things about that is that if you happen to filter out the errors, turn on warnings only, the Solution Explorer will keep a track of only the filtered items that you have in your solution list. So turn on errors, and they start appearing again. There's another extension that comes with Productivity Power Tools, and it's called Fix Mixed Tabs. I have a file that I'm going to open, and it's got some spaces and some tabs because somebody edited it and they used a different standard to what I'm used to. So as soon as I open this file, Fix Mixed Tabs alerts me that this file has a mixture of spaces and tabs. I can highlight those by pressing Control-R-W, and here you can see some spaces, some tabs. That's cool, but I don't want that. I want to get rid of it so that I don't get in trouble at pull request time when my boss says, why have you gone against standard? Using Fix Mixed Tabs, it will alert me that I've got these, and I can choose to untabify and put it back in spaces, which is my team standards. This is useful because it will also help you if you happen to be editing a file. The minute you save a file with these things in it, and I'm just going to use advanced to put some spaces in there, and tabs. So now I've got tabs here. As soon as I save that, Fix Mixed Tabs pops up and warns me, hey, you're trying to save a file where you've mucked it up. So again, I can fix it up. That was extension number 3. On to number 4. 4, 5, 6, and 7 are all from an extension called Hot Commands. Hot Commands is an extension written by a group of us in a Microsoft hackathon last year, where we provide a whole bunch of commands for making editing easier and more powerful. I'll demonstrate some of those features now. The first one I want to demonstrate is toggle comment, one of my favorites, and the first one I implemented. Turn off those spaces. So the beauty of toggle comment, if you want to comment out some code, there's a shortcut key for it. It's Control-KC. And if I want to uncomment, it's Control-KU. A little bit tricky that they call it a shortcut because it actually takes more characters to press Control-KC than it does to actually just go home // All the same. So we've invented a toggle comment shortcut. So if the line is uncommented and I apply toggle comment, which is Control/, it will simply comment the line. We need more screen space. And if I want to uncomment it, I don't need to remember another shortcut. It's the same shortcut key, Control/. So I can have a group of lines, comment the whole lot out, and restore the comment, just like that. But where it's most useful is if I'm working through my code and I want to comment as I go. If you have nothing selected, toggle comment will comment out the line and move down one, like that, allowing me to continue with 5 keystrokes to take out all those things. And bring them all back again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're back in business. So that's toggle comment. Duplicate code. I'll show you how I used to duplicate code. Let's say I'm looking to let's say, open up a file, type, and this one I'm going to use the editor extensions. And I've decided that I want to copy this method here. So here's how we can do it. Once we've selected what we want to copy, we could use Control-C to copy. Down, up, Control-V. That'll get me there. That's 4 keystrokes. My mate Oleg showed me that he has a neat way of doing it, which is to do it with 3 keystrokes. Control-C, Control-V, Control-V. But I'll tell you how to do it in 1 keystroke. We've introduced the shortcut key Control-D, and with whatever's selected, Control-D duplicates, just like that. 1 keystroke. If you do that 10 times a day, think how many times that will save you. I sometimes use it just as a tricky thing. If I want to create a method with the same signature, I'll take the bracket from above and the first few lines, duplicate that. Now I've got an empty shell. But in this example, I want this method to simply be is class or namespace. So I can type that. And then using toggle comment, take out these 2 lines in the middle. 1, 2. Now I have is class or namespace. So that's with duplicate code. Expand selection. OK, let's see. I'm going to open up the, oops, that's not a valid shortcut. Control-T, the Roslyn extensions that I have. Now, expand selection. Now, this is cool. If I want to copy some code, you can, of course, use your mouse painfully to carefully select what you want. But expand selection will highlight what's at my cursor and increasingly expand that selection. So if the first time I expand selection, I get all the string in that box. Do it again, and it wraps the brackets. Do it again, and we get the whole statement. Continue to expand, we get all statements in the method. Continue, we get all methods in the file, all classes, and then the whole file. And then reduce that, I went too far, reduce the selection, because all I really wanted was that line. Then I can copy that. That's expand selection. Move parent member up and down. All right, let's say I want this method at the bottom of the file. There's many ways of doing that painfully by copying and pasting it, but with a new shortcut that we've introduced in this extension, we can move member up and down with Control, Shift, Alt, up and down, arrow. Plenty. We're running out of keyboard shortcuts. But anyway, watch the power of this. No matter where my cursor is, anywhere inside this method, Control, Alt, Shift, down, 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 wait, up, no, down, 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 and move that method all the way to the bottom of the file. So those are just some of the features in Hot Commands, and Hot Commands delivers a whole bunch of other features, including direct shortcuts for going to the method above and below. You can discover the power of Hot Commands yourself by downloading it from the marketplace. But I have 3 more extensions I'd like to show you. So let's move over to the Solution Explorer. When I build my extensions, I always like to often inspect the output from the build. You can do that by right-clicking and say Open in File Explorer and then navigating to the build and debug directory. There is a simple little extension called Open Output Folder, which when you right-click here gives you this Open Output Folder and takes me straight to the output in the bin directory in the appropriate place, which saves me a lot of time. Neat little extension, very useful. Now, what if I want to add a solution folder? Adding a solution folder can sometimes be tricky, as you must first add the folder and then add all the items. But if there's a folder that you have in your system and you just want to add it, there's an extension written by Cecilia Wren at the MVP Summit last year called Add Folder as Solution Folder. And when you choose this, it prompts you with a file dialog, which is already selected at the folder that you're on. I might choose that I want to add my images to my solution. And when I hit OK, it adds a solution folder and all the items and nicely pops up all my images for me. So that's Add Solution Folder. Finally, and I've saved the best for last, this is one of my favorites that I've recently learnt about, multi-cursor editing. So hold your seats now as I demonstrate multi-cursor editing. And for this, I will use the file of constants. So multi-cursor editing. We have some features in the box for multi-cursor editing, and I'll point it out now. If you didn't know, you can, I'm going to use my mouse here. You can hold the Alt key while you make a box. Anywhere in this box, I now have a bunch of cursors, and when I start typing, you can see it types all over the place. Or, using the keyboard shortcut, which I much prefer, I can hold the Alt key. While holding Alt, press down, 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 down. Hang on, wrong shortcut. We'll come back to that one. Alt-Shift. Alt-Shift down will select multiple lines. And as I go across, you'll see that I've selected all of this. Now I want to make these private read-only. Private, read-only.
Spelling on stage is hard, guys.
Yeah. So, and that allows me to edit them all in one go. Of course, some of these things can be done with find and replace, but some things can't be done with find and replace. Let's say I want to add append numbers to the end of 3 of these separate things. So, using the extension multi-edit, I can hold the Alt key and click in several places to put a cursor wherever I want it. Now I have 4 cursors and I type numbers, and just those places get that. Oh, shucks, guys. Wait. If you think that's impressive, look at this. So I need to fill out this statement. I need to make a switch statement to determine which of these items are fruit. So here's how I'll do it. Switch, get my typing all right, switch item, and I'm going to paste these items in here. Now, I need to write case. I need to put quotes around all the words. I need a colon. I need a new line. I need to say return true. I don't want to have to type that 4 times. So using the power of multi-edit, I can click, and then holding the Alt key, I can click another cursor and another cursor and another cursor. Now watch as I create that whole statement. Case, open quote. Control across moves the whole word, so no matter how many letters are in it, jumps the whole word in every cursor. And back one, quote, colon, enter, return true. Bam! How's that? So I'm going to end on a high and pass right back over to Alison. Thanks, Alison.
I don't really know how I'm going to follow that now. I feel like you've set the bar here. I'm going to have to jump for it, I guess.
Let's see what you can do.
All right, so I'm going to talk about code tools. So in this next demo, we're going to be just covering some little snippets around CodeLens, IntelliSense, as well as the great little light bulb suggestions. And hopefully you guys will find that useful, and then we'll have one last demo from Justin. So let's dive in here. Now, I have this Paint application that we've been working with this whole time. And as you see here, it apparently just doesn't want to stop drawing because I've forgotten to add the mouse up action to it. So because I'm not super familiar with this, I'm just going to follow the pattern that I see for the other 3. I'm going to start with my parentheses here, and I'm just going to do PC because IntelliSense will actually match on casing here. So as you can see for each of these, there are bolded P's and C's in each of those where it tells me where it's matching on those. Unfortunately, now it's covered up what I was trying to copy, and I might have forgotten what's there. I could exit out of IntelliSense, but I kind of want to keep it around. So instead, I can just hold Control, and I can see right through that box. And this actually works for any box that pops up in the editor. So for things like diagnostics, I believe it also works, and IntelliSense here. So we see that it's Paint Canvas, so I can look for it. Maybe I'm in a rush, and I still don't quite see it. So what I'm going to do is try and use these lovely filters at the bottom here. And
Ooh,
what this
that looks new. What's going on there?
Yeah, so these are brand new in 2017, and now you actually have the ability to filter down to a specific category that you want IntelliSense to cover. So, for example, for those of you getting used to a new code base or a new API, we hope that this will be super useful in helping you better understand and learn it quickly. So also, as you'll notice, these all have shortcuts. So Alt-I for interfaces, Alt-C. I think that's what I want, so I'm going to hit Alt-C. And as we notice, it filters just to that. I'm going to click down to Paint Canvas, and then I'm going to do this again with Drawing Canvas. And with the magic of copy-paste before this, we're going to finish it right there. All right. So that is all the great things with IntelliSense. As well, if you ever accidentally escape from IntelliSense and you want it back, you can always get back to it with Control Space, and it will bring it back up for you. If you want to get rid of it, you can hit Escape. Alrighty. So now, as we go back, we see that we have this blinking light bulb on the side. This is really meant to help you with suggestions to make your code better and to help you target errors before they become a problem. So you can either click on it with the mouse, or if you are a keyboard junkie like Justin, there are two keyboard shortcuts for you. They are Alt-Enter and Control-Dot. I like Control-Dot. So as we see here, it tells us that we have an unnecessary cast. And if I were to click Enter right here, it would fix the single instance that I just added. But also, it could fix all of the instances like this in my document, my project, or in my entire solution. I'm going to go ahead and fix it in my entire document. As you see here, it tells me every file that it's changing, as well as a preview of what's going to happen when I click Apply, so that I don't have to worry about all of the things Visual Studio is doing in the background. I know right here exactly what's going to occur. If I hit Apply, our angry light bulb goes away and tells me that I'm all set. Finally, we're going to talk about CodeLens, or these tiny gray words above your methods that I'm sure you guys are used to seeing. So one way to get around them, of course, is with your mouse, or a shortcut is to hold Alt, and as you'll notice, the numbers to shortcut there appear. So if you want to see your references, we can hit 2. We can also tab between these with Alt, left, and right. So you can see that I'm the only one who's been changing it because this is my demo, and you can actually see all of the commits right here. What's actually pretty interesting that I just found out when I was creating this demo is that I can actually scroll through these commits, and I can look at them right from within Visual Studio. So I can actually see the changes that were made, who made them, and at what time. Now, the last thing that I really like about CodeLens is it also allows you to look at your series of tests and see what's either failing or passing from the last time it's run. So if we go back to the editor, and I'm going to use the fancy Control-Alt page down to go to the tab over there, we see here that from our last run, we have a test that's failing. And for many of you, if you don't like having Test Explorer open all the time, this is a really quick way to do a check on what's passing and what's failing without taking up extra screen from you. So if we actually go here, we notice that it's failing. I know that we're testing this set thickness, and we could go with go to definition, but I like keeping my context. So what I'm going to use is peak to definition instead, which is Alt F12. And as you notice here, we actually get a tiny window that shows us the definition. And as we can see, someone wanted to set our thickness to 20 all the time, so no wonder our test is failing. What's even better is that this is not just a preview window, you can actually edit it. So I can fix this right here. I can save it, hit escape to exit out of it, and then if I were to go back to our CodeLens, I can easily run our tests again. And as it's running, hopefully I fixed it correctly, and it's all green. So as I go through this now, I notice that all of my tests are passing, and I'm in the clear. As well, maybe you like to have Test Explorer open, so you don't want CodeLens telling you about that. It's fully customizable with the different things that you'd like to see. By just going to Quick Launch, Control-Q, and typing in CodeLens, it actually gives us all of our options here. So maybe you don't want to see test status. You can actually disable that. And maybe you're only using Git, so you want to disable the TFVC timeline. Or maybe you're working within TFVC, but you don't want to see the bugs associated with it. Now, when you come back, CodeLens is ultimately customized for your needs. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Justin for our very last demo.
Thanks, Alison. Okay, all right. Well, wait, don't let them see what I'm doing.
Oh.
Just a moment. Okay, so the last thing we're going to demonstrate today is a very powerful new feature introduced into Visual Studio 2017, which we call live unit testing. Now, if you flick back to my screen, I have a solution that has some tests. And all solutions should have tests, so that's appropriate. In this solution, I have one class here, trainer, and giving them an early preview here. And I've got a bunch of tests that I've run against this class. So what I want to do is have these tests run in the background. Live unit testing is a background test runner. You can think of it like that. It offers both code coverage and test results right where you're editing. And I'll show you what it looks like. We can turn on live unit testing under the test menu. Live unit testing, start. As soon as I do this, you can see that it pops out the open output, and you can see it's building. Seconds later, it produces little glyphs up and down the file to let me know which lines of my code have been covered by tests. This is reflected across all files that have tests in it. A blue line indicates that there are no tests covering this, and a red X indicates that tests are failing, and a green tick indicates that tests are passing. Now, for some reason, it shows that there are no tests running against this project. So I'm going to build the project, build the solution, which should restore all the NuGet packages it needs to get this working again. So now if I have a look at my test class, look at that, like magic. It's running all my tests. This green tick shows that every test run against here is passing. I'm going to restart live unit testing now so you can see how it works when you turn it on. So I start, test, live unit testing, start. I wait, it runs the tests. We wait for the glyphs to pop up, and there they are. Bunch of ticks, bunch of crosses. Now, what I can see by looking at the ticks here, that there's one test. If I click on it, it shows me that test. If I click on another one, I can see all the tests that that's having. In this one, there's a failure. I don't know what it is, but when I click on it, it shows me all the passing tests as well as this one test that's failing. And if you can see, it shows me the exception details. So I can see immediately this is failing. And there's a message that says it threw some exception. I want to know more about this. So I can double-click this and go straight to the test that failed. That's a really nice way of identifying what's failing where and going straight to it. From here, I can see there's a little red X reflecting, and I can rerun this test in debug mode. What happens when I run this test, we'll see. Run the test, my test explorer pops up, and this one test has failed. And if I pull this out so we can see it better, maybe I'll see if I can doc that as a document. There we go. There's a problem. So I want to fix this, and I think I know the solution. Because I've done this before. Here I have this test. It's trying to test that no workout notes will throw an exception, but it's not throwing an exception when I pass null in. So I will go to try to fix it. And where's my constructor? Let's see. Oh, I might have moved it to the bottom of the file. I have a lot of failing tests here, Alison. Here we go. Here's a constructor. Now, I want to make sure that I don't let anybody pass null notes in. So I'll put in a quick check here. If notes is null, then please throw a new exception. How about an argument null exception? Now, as I'm editing code, you'll notice that the glyphs on the side are in stale mode. They're paused, they're running, they're waiting for me to finish what I've done. Press my semicolon, it runs the tests, and when it's finished running the tests, it redisplays the results. Unfortunately, in this demo, I didn't fix them all. But that just shows you how live unit testing works, in that it will show you, as you're typing, whether or not you fixed what you're looking to fix. And you can turn those off again by going to the test, live unit testing, and stop. And that's live unit testing for you. And I think that's all we've got for today.
All right, thank you guys so much for coming. Hopefully you each got at least one or new tricks that you can take back with you. Other things that we'd like to encourage you to join us for are Supercharger Debugging with Casey Anderson tomorrow at 12:30 in 6E, as well as the Future of Visual Studio with Amanda Silver and Tim Sneath at 9 a.m. Of course, you can rewatch this again. And finally, please fill out the evaluations. It's the only way we get feedback from you guys unless you come talk to us. So we'd really appreciate it if you could evaluate that. Thank you.
Don't forget to come get your keyboard mousepad from the VS Partners booth.
And enjoy the party tonight. We'll see
Thank
you there.
you. We're done.